Hello, welcome back to Disused Railway Diaries with me, Colin The Head. On today's episode, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be exploring Drewton Railway Tunnel. Now, the Drewton Railway Tunnel were on the Hull and Barnsley Railway, and it was probably the most importantest piece of infrastructure that was actually built here in the chalk hills near Ripley. What we know about the Drewton Railway Tunnel is it was built through chalk, and the chalk was an important factor in the actual construction of the actual line. The line from Rangbrook Junction to Little Weighton Cutting were closed in 1959, and the Drewton Railway Tunnel was part of it. Now, the Drewton Railway Tunnel is the third longest disused railway tunnel in England. Now, we've never visited this site, so we don't know what's actually down there. We have seen on the internet and from regular sources that there's actually mud down there, but it's a nice dry day. You know, it's not raining or out. I reckon we'll be able to get in today into Drewton Railway Tunnel, and we'll be able to make today's episode. I'm Colin The Head, and welcome to Disused Railway Diaries. Right, so we've clambered across quarry, and we've clambered into this vast ravine. Obviously, we've got a 77 foot deep cutting. Obviously, we're stood on infill at the moment, and the actual western portal are just behind us. We've literally had to walk a mile and a half from car to get to this point, and we're currently set on infill. So this used to be the actual cutting that we're actually standing on. As you can see, the tunnel portal is in the bottom of the actual cutting, and it's half buried, as you can see. Yeah, this has been probably hardest the hardest tunnel we've ever had to find on Disused Railway Diaries, and it's been quite a challenge up to press. Let's just hope it's not too muddy inside so we can get a little bit of footage for you. Right, so we're just here at the western portal here at Drewton Tunnel, which we're on the Hull and Barnsley Railway. Now, we've just been let out of lockdown. They're currently UK's in a deep coronavirus lockdown, and we've just been allowed to come out and actually do things like this. So for the last 7 weeks this project's been shelved and we haven't been able to do it. But I just like to feel the serenity and the quaintness and how peaceful it is down here. Obviously, I've never visited this tunnel before. It's the first time I've ever been here, and it's always been to me it's always been in a book or on an internet site. I've never actually seen it for myself, and I've never actually been here, so it's a world first for Colin The Head. And to take in the setting of the actual western portal, it's in a very, very deep cutting, far deeper than any Barnsdale. And I mean, it makes Barnsdale Tunnel look like a pothole compared to for comparison. Now, it is actually one of the third longest disused railway tunnels in England, and it is actually accessible. So this is like high on the agenda for as it gets in the disused world for disused railway tunnels. All the air shafts are still open, and I can't stress to you the grandness about it, the actual engineering feat that went into building this actual tunnel. This particular stretch at Hull and Barnsley were at a cost of £59,000 per mile, so that's what it actually cost to construct the actual Hull and Barnsley through this actual chalk hill. We're going to actually take a look at the front of the portal first. We're going to have a just look at the decor of the actual portal. What we can actually see, it's decorated in true Hull and Barnsley fashion, and the actual front portal is blue brindles. Blue brindles were a feature across the line, and this particular face of the tunnel is actually made out of blue brindles, engineering bricks. It's stereotypical of all tunnels online. It's got the keystone. Obviously, we've got a lovely shot at keystone here. We haven't really seen a keystone. Usually it's up in air and it's like 21 foot above us heads. But look how big that keystone is. Look how vast and great actual keystone is. You won't think it was that big. Obviously, the old Hull and Barnsley were built out of red brick from end to end, and it's apparent in the construction of this tunnel. They all mirrored. If anything, this particular tunnel is actually decorated in a little more of a grander fashion than Barnsdale, Burley. You can see the curb edgings at top. Barnsdale ain't got them. It ain't got the actual imposing structure of the portal. And if you can imagine, if all this infill wanted it, it'd be quite impressive and quite large. But obviously the operation has covered the actual mouth of the tunnel, and this is all we're left with. Right, so in getting tunnel. Yeah, well, let's find a dry spot here.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Shit, man, I've sunk.
Pull it, you'll come out.
I need an anchor point because I'm sinking. Colin, I'm actually sinking.
No, it's mad, isn't it? That's it, come up. There's your weight out.
Oh, fuck.
Don't keep going, nice and quick.
Oh, I've got problems, me, pal. I'm going to lose my welly. Fuck, man down. Cole, can't do this. Can't do it.
Right, so we're just in tunnel here at western side of the Drewton Tunnel, and we've attempted to make an entrance into the tunnel to try and continue with exploration. But the tunnel itself's guarded. We knew it was guarded by mud, and obviously what we've seen on the internet and what we've actually viewed, we've seen that it is guarded by what appears to be quicksand. And at the beginning it's quite solid where we stood at the moment, but as you get further into the tunnel, the chalk turns to mud basically. Me and my colleague have just tried to enter the tunnel, and literally we got 50 yards into the tunnel, and it got to the point where we couldn't move. Now we've watched other failed attempts on the YouTube and so far for people trying to gain entrance to the tunnel from this side, and they've succumbed to the same fate. But there is people that make it. At certain times of year there is footprints in the mud. People have tried and failed, and the further you get into the tunnel, the least footprints you see. We managed to get 50 yards into the tunnel and we got succumbed by the mud, which is quite daunting actually, to say the least. Kind of walked through it, I was sinking and cameraman was sinking, and we were just sinking, and once you get a vacuum underneath your wellies, you can't pull your wellies out. So yeah, it's the tunnel's being guarded by a sea of quicksand. We've had no rain whatsoever, and it's dry as a bone down here as far as rainfall's concerned, but the tunnel never dries out. The tunnel never dries out. Even if you come in middle of August, you still succumb to the same fate. I know I've seen people that have walked through it, they've dredged through it, but I've heard it's knee deep. I've been told that the mud is knee deep. It's 2,114 yards long, this tunnel. So to put it into perspective for the actual Hull and Barnsley enthusiast, Barnsdale Tunnel's 1,226 and this is 2,114, so it's nearly twice long as Barnsdale. It's got 5 ventilation shafts which are all open, and hence why they're open is because obviously it's cut through chalk and the tunnel's got to still be ventilated, or it'd just cave in. The tunnel lining would just decompose under water ingress. So obviously here, this is where this is obviously the tunnel roof, and this is the infill that we stood on. But just to get into comprehending how high the actual tunnel, how much infill has actually gone into the tunnel. I mean, your standard tunnel height is 21 foot from the base from the track level to the actual height. So, you know, all tunnels on Hull and Barnsley were at a height of 21 foot, and this were no different. And you can see, obviously, this is tunnel ceiling, and obviously it descends into tunnel, does this here infill, which is its way, and eventually it peters out, and it turns to tunnel floor further afield, but we can't get to that part. A little bit disappointing, really, because, you know, I wanted to go to this tunnel for, Jesus Christ, years. Yeah, a little bit disheartening, to be honest with you, at this moment in time. But we will persevere. We're walking out of Drewton Tunnel. I'm proper pissed off. I'm proper disheartened. Bloody tunnel. I'll tell you now, I'm getting inside this tunnel, even if it kills me. To get access to Drewton Tunnel, you're presented with a lot of. It's as if they want to keep you out. They want to keep you out. There's definitely something they want to keep you out for. There's obviously quite a lot to see in it, but to get to it, it's hard work. You've got chuffing farmers on quads buzzing round, you know, keeping an eye on it, telling you that you can't do this and you can't do that. It's private land. Obviously, we're situated in the middle of a quarry. It's like everything's against you, and then to top it all off, when you actually get through all these measures, you've got a sea of quicksand to stop you from entering tunnel. Right, so we've currently come to ventilation shaft number 3 for Drewton Tunnel. Now, Drewton Tunnel had 5 ventilation shafts in total. Now, what's unique about Drewton Tunnel to all the other tunnels on the Hull and Barnsley is the ventilation shafts have been left intact on the surface. So, if we could have got inside the tunnel, we could have stood at the bottom of them, and we could have actually had a look up them. But, because of the mud, we couldn't. So what we decided to do on today's episode is come to the top and look at the actual chimneys themselves. They're called chimneys, ventilation shafts. Now this is ventilation shaft number 3, and you can see it's decorated in the typical Hull and Barnsley fashion. Red engineering bricks and nice blue brindles round bottom, and they actually are quite nicely decorated. Now these are rare. These are actually rare on the Hull and Barnsley because all the other tunnels have had them demolished and they've been capped off. They were capped off at Barnsdale Tunnel. Barnsdale Tunnel had 3 of these. They were capped off there. They were capped off at Braley Tunnel, which had 1 ventilation shaft, which we featured in the Braley Tunnel video where we went to the bottom. So really to find them intact and in one piece is quite a novelty. Now behind me we can see ventilation shaft number 4. That's ventilation shaft number 4, which is just in front of that little bit of woodland there. Now beyond the woodland there's ventilation shaft number 5, I believe. So the last ventilation shaft behind the woodland, and we can't see that because it's on private land. There you have it, an actual intact Hull and Barnsley ventilation shaft that's still in one piece. You know, they're still in one piece here at Drewton. Each one of these particular air shafts has got rails over the top, and they're still gridded off. So even if we did get on top with a set of ladders, we'd still be able to stand on top of it, but we ain't got no ladders today. So that is ventilation shaft number 3 on Drewton Tunnel. And can I also add about ventilation shaft number 3? This is where the navvy camp was when they built the actual tunnel. So when they actually cut Drewton Tunnel, the navvies were actually based around this air shaft. Because that's what they were construction shafts. They weren't solely designed to be ventilation shafts. They were used as ventilation shafts after, but they were actually construction shafts which were sunk at equal intervals, and then what they did, they dug down to ventilation shaft number 4 and out to ventilation shaft number 3. So they dug down and then they dug out, and that's exactly how the tunnels were constructed. That's how they could make them so long, so fast and so quick, rather than have two headings at either side of the hill and hope that they meet in the middle, what they did, they had various headings at strategic points along the line of the tunnel so they could link them all together and build them faster. So that's just a little bit about these here ventilation shafts, and it's the first one I've ever seen. I'll be honest with you, I've not seen an Hull and Barnsley ventilation shaft. There's a nice step line fracture in it, but overall, to say that it's a disused ventilation shaft, which is quite uncommon to find a disused ventilation shaft. It's very uncommon to find them, and they're very rare. But the reason why they've been left open, these particular ventilation shafts, is the construction of the tunnel full of chalk. Obviously it's a very unstable rock, and the actual tunnel were prone for rock falls during construction. So these ventilation shafts have been left open to preserve the actual integrity of the tunnel. So what we're going to do now is, in the actual show, is we're going to adventure further east. So what we've decided to do is come back to car, and we've decided to disregard the western portal as inaccessible. What we have done, we've come into the little village of Little Weighton, which is just a little bit further east than Drewton Tunnel, to actually see what remnants of Hull and Barnsley there is, you know, just to see what's here, because we've never come to this part of Hull and Barnsley before. Like I've told you, it's a Disused Railway Diaries first, this. So what we've done, we've come into Little Weighton just to see what's left, basically. And what we've found actually a bridge which belonged to Hull and Barnsley. So this is where Hull and Barnsley crossed this road here in Little Weighton. If you look at the bridge plate, Department for Transport are in charge of this particular bridge. HBR 250, bridge number 50, HBR Railway. That's who's got maintenance of the bridge. And if you just look over this here bridge wall, we've got the old station building which was Little Weighton Station. So Little Weighton Station, as you can see, were quite a grand affair. It was far from being little. Passenger traffic from Little Weighton to Hull were popular. It were a popular thing from the people of Little Weighton to use the railway and use the railway to get transportation into Hull. Passenger traffic to Little Weighton did continue really right up to the closure of the actual line. So a lot of the Hull and Barnsley suffered badly when it come down to passenger traffic, but Little Weighton did hold on to its passenger service right up until closure in 1959. Hence why the big lavish station buildings were built. Obviously you can't see the platforms have gone, but you know, it was quite a substantial station with Little Weighton. Right, so here we are, just east of Little Weighton Station. Little Weighton Station is beyond us. Obviously this is the bridge we've just been stood on. A really good example here of an Hull and Barnsley road bridge. These were found at Rambrook Junction as well, but obviously it's been demolished. You'll also find one at bottom of Field Lane, just at back of next here at Southend. And there's only the walls that remain at Field Lane. You can only see the walls. But here, there's no backfill. It's not been backfilled. You can see the actual bridge now. This is the first time we've featured an Hull and Barnsley bridge of this type on the Disused Railway Diaries. And these bridges, these little crossings, were seen all the way along the Hull and Barnsley. They were the characteristic crossing or bridge which were used on the Hull and Barnsley. And you can see they're decorated in quite a quaint affair. Red engineering bricks capped with blue brindles, and just a nice bridge really, to be honest with you. A nice brick built bridge here at Little Weighton. And it's a very, very good example. Let's go have a look, see what's left of it. So here we are underneath HBR 250. The Little Weighton Station is to my right. And obviously here you can see behind me the end of the actual physical platform, which is the actual station house. So that is a private residence. It's actually been inhabited and been used as a residence. But there's some very good examples at platform edge, obviously. It's still intact, its platform, and there's actually copings left from back in the day when the platform was still here. It was a substantial station, my Little Weighton Station. It must have been. I can feel it. I can feel it was quite a substantial thing when it was actually in operation. And I can't believe how much is actually still left. I can't believe how much is actually still left. It hasn't been succumbed to redevelopment or demolition. It's actually in exceptionally good. It's just as if they've just pulled tracks up and left it. 1959, just last saw traffic. And yeah, if we couldn't get into Drewton Tunnel, it's been worth coming to do here to have a look at this. So another thing can I say is there's no litter to call out. There's no litter, there's no graffiti. If this would have been in Seskew, this area would have been heavily graffitied, vandalised, or backfilled like they have done with all the bridges in the Seskew area for Hull and Barnsley. They've all been backfilled. They've all been backfilled and they've all been covered up so you can't see them. So hence, this is quite interesting for us, for Disused Railway Diaries, because obviously round our parts all the infrastructure like this has been covered up. What we're going to do, we're going to finish it here. Obviously but to call it in a nutshell, it hasn't been as good an episode as what we expected it to be. You know, we expected to get access to Drewton Tunnel. Obviously we were succumbed by quicksand and mud, which was quite a disappointment, but we didn't know we were going to come into find this bridge. So I suppose the bridges like outweighed the disappointment when we got at Drewton Tunnel. So from HBR 250, which is the bridge number, I'll catch you again in another episode of Disused Railway Diaries. I'm Colin The Head and thank you for watching. Bye.